fine. If you can give me like 15 seconds, I'm teeing up the stream right now, and it looks
Ah,
like we are live and you're good to go. So I will give
all
the floor to
right.
you, Kate. Oh, one quick housekeeping note for you guys who are in the room with us. If you have questions for Kate throughout, if you'll just dump those into chat, we'll pick those up at the end. And Kate's also got a handout for you guys. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, while she gets started, if you'd share where in the country you're dialing in from, to use the old term, I'm interested in that. And Kate, with that, I will give you the stage. Thank you again.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks for having me today. I'm Kate Josephine Johnson, founder of Heritage Business Services, as Kevin mentioned. And my firm does specialize in a bookkeeping software called FreshBooks. It's my specialty. I use it every day and happy to answer any questions you might have about FreshBooks. Later offline or during the Q&A, that's not what this presentation is about. I just want to make that clear. Because right now I'm excited to help you think about how you can simplify and strengthen your financial tech stack today, and how you go about choosing your financial tech stack with confidence. One last caveat, as I was writing this presentation originally, a different group had asked me to write this specific topic. I started with the idea of talking about just finance and accounting stuff for businesses, because that's my specialty. But honestly, in 2025, we're using all kinds of tech in all aspects of our life, including a lot of personal finance stuff as well, because as y'all Sequence users know. And it hit me that what I was preparing to teach really applies to almost any tech you can decide to adopt in your business or in your personal life. So I was able to kind of take this at a higher level rather than just like, bookkeeping software. So we're going to move right along. The plan for today is we're going to start with understanding why financial systems matter and need to be strong. I'm going to share 6 principles that you can apply when choosing your tools, your tech tools. So that's going to be a huge, like very tangible takeaway for you, all these 6 principles. Then we're going to talk about building a custom system that works for you. And I do have something I'm calling a mini audit. Accounting people like use the word audit. Don't be scared by that. Just a glance at what you're using. I have a worksheet that's going to help you guide through that. We'll either do it together, or I could, depending on how much time we have, I might just send you with it. And we'll have some Q&A with some final encouragement and other resources. So why your tech stack matters. I would love to see, if y'all are willing, in the chat, some comments about what your current financial tech stack is. Obviously, probably y'all are all using the application that Sequence has developed, but anything that has to do with money, taxes, getting paid from clients if you have a business, bookkeeping, maybe advanced banking tools. If you have some, that would kind of help me know who's in the audience. But where have you already made an investment in tech? I'm curious about that. And while y'all are chiming in, I want to start with a little reality check about why it matters. Y'all, you can be amazing at what you do. We all earn a living somehow. But if your business finances and your personal finances are a mess, it can still take you down. It's not going to matter if you're the best professional at whatever it is you specialize in. Your business life and your personal life can become crippled if you don't take your financial operations seriously. It's the difference between someone, sort of having success and not. So yeah, I'll go as far as to say that someone can be worse at your particular skill set, right? There's a lot of people who do what you do. They can be worse at that, but have more success than you, who are more skilled than them, if they have a better handle of the back end of their financial processes. That's true, okay? So we don't want that. We want you to be the best at your craft and also have a strong financial foundation, so you can really have success and have success. So whether we're talking about personal or business finances, cash flow is one of the leading reasons that businesses fail, that personal lives feel stressful. So you have to take them seriously. That's why it matters. Financial chaos can really suck all the joy out of your business, out of your personal life, right? We want our life to be joyful and peaceful, but if we have financial chaos, it'll cause stress and it's going to quickly ruin, all that joy that you're striving for. So, and conversely, having a strong system can bring you peace of mind and free you up to really thrive. Does anyone want to confess in the chat whether their finances are a source of peace of mind or a source of chaos, whether it's business or personal finances? I'd love to know if you feel more like that knot on the left of this image or that light bulb on the right of the image. So, okay, let me look at some of these texts that we've got. We got wave, empower, entreaty, stessa, sequence, exclamation point, wave, and air base. So yeah, I'm not familiar with all of those, but at least you have a text stack. So we'll get into some of those. So now I'm going to move us to working our way through these principles. So that's why the financial text stack matters. So let's think about how we're going to choose it. My first principle is what I call the KISS principle. Keep it simple, silly. It's one of my personal life philosophies now, but to be honest, it hasn't always been. I used to overcomplicate things in my business and in my personal finances. Even today, I'll tell y'all, my husband and I are still kind of unwinding some of the complexity that we added early on. There was a time when we had like 9 or 10 checking or savings accounts at USAA and all these transfers going all over. And like, we're still kind of unwinding that. So now I constantly ask myself, y'all, is what I'm considering doing abiding by the KISS principle? This principle doesn't just make life easier. It makes it possible to grow your net worth and your business. It makes it possible to hire help. It makes it possible to automate things. If we have like a principle of simplicity, I think automation's a lot easier to add. Curious if y'all agree with that or not. But if your systems are twisty and inconsistent, if you do things differently every time, it'll be really hard to delegate, really hard to automate. An example from the business world that I see all the time is when I train people in FreshBooks, they have different invoice line items for like every single client. You can't run reports on that. That's an example of, wait a second, can that client simplify things? Think about the 5 or 6 or 9 or 10 things that he or she sells, trying to get things simple so we can run reports on them. They're just not using that tool in the right way. Another example, whether it's business or personal, you might spend a bunch of time running different reports from a bookkeeping software or a personal finance software. But if you're constantly like tailoring them or having to rerun them, that's going to really not create a simple process. So I think like 1 to 3 reports that are the same every single month is going to allow you to start to compare on a period to period basis. These are just some ideas about how simplicity really helps calm the chaos. Simple structures might feel limiting at first, y'all, but I believe that they actually give you more freedom and you'll spend less time managing messy systems and more time growing your financial foundation or more time enjoying your life. It'll be less of a headache to show up and consistently do all the things that are required of you if you have simple tools, even if you don't use them all perfectly. So principle 1, keep it simple. Principle 2 is use what you already have. So this principle has, again, become more important in my own personal life, whether it's in business or my personal financial journey. So I think you should master one tool before adding others, or you can ask yourself, ask yourself, is anything I'm currently using able to handle this task or this thing that I'm thinking of? A while back, I told my mastermind group that my tech stack had gotten kind of bloated after 7 years in business. I could just feel it getting kind of a little pudgy, my expenses were creeping up and I was paying for tools that I wasn't even using well. So y'all, has anyone felt that feeling of expenses getting bloated over time? You can chime in the chat as well. But I asked my group to hold me accountable to streamline and reduce my expenses. And I did it because I asked this group to hold me accountable. I looked through my bank statements and expenses reports and found things I could eliminate or downgrade. So I removed tech because I realized I had other options that if I just did a little tweaking, I could use them. A
Hey,
rule of
Kate,
thumb
can I add a comment?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that occurs to me is like sometimes I do think that it's maybe an expense thing where we look at our tech stack and we think like, okay, I feel like I could spend X or Y amount overall on the tools that I'm using. But sometimes I think there's also like a lot of like a Venn diagram overlap of feature set, like you alluded to, that can
Mm-hmm.
make it really tempting to take on new tools. And plus, like I think frankly, we're just sold new stuff all the time. It's like there are a lot of shiny new tools that are constantly coming off the conveyor belt that make it really tempting. So anyway, interested to see where
No,
this goes.
totally. Yeah, totally agree. I think one of my next slides, I talk about how ultimately everything that we buy is a recommendation from someone, whether it's our dad or our brother or our neighbor or an ad or someone in the sequence community. Everything we buy, and or an ad, like someone recommended something. It's either the marketing on it or it's like a personal recommendation. So I'm going to talk about one of the principles related to personal recommendations too. But in general, this principle, a good question you can ask yourself is your tech stack growing faster than your revenue? Or for personal finances, are your expenses growing faster than your salary? That's kind of a mathematical way to think about it. If the answer is yes, it's not always a bad sign. Maybe you're in a period of investment, but in general, I would say that that's a sign that maybe you could have perhaps used what you already had and invested in learning what those tools, can do instead of buying another one. So I just really started to lean into thinking about whether my existing tech stack can do the job that I'm needing done. And an example from my personal life is I made the conscious decision to go all in with Google Workspace, including in my personal life, y'all. I had this hunch that I was just sort of scratching the surface of all that Google could do. And so now before I look for a tool, I ask myself, is there a tool in the Google suite of products that can already do what I need? So we've got family calendar management now, and like there might be like an off-the-shelf like little product that might have been slightly easier, but by becoming a subject matter expert in the tool that I was already using, I was able to not bloat my tech stack in some of the stuff that Google can do. So same with my bank, Relay Financial. That's one example from my own tech stack that I invested in the mentality of what all can my bank do. And so this particular bank that I use, I can collect W-9s from vendors when I try to pay a bill because I can use that bank for bill pay. And so like W-9s was like a tool that collection was like a tool that I needed. And I realized, okay, well, I'm getting sold these like W-9 collecting tools. Can we just use the bank to do it? That's an example of diving a little deeper, taking a pause before you subscribe to something else and seeing if what you have already works. If you had ask yourself the question, if you had to do it with what you already possess, with the tools you already possess, how would you do it? And you might discover some good solutions. Principle 3, get recommendations. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I have first, I think tapping into your peers' experiences is a great way. Y'all are already sitting in a community full, a Zoom room full of people who have overlapping experiences with what you're going through and the specific questions you have. So the knowledge you may have might be right here or in other groups that you're in. But getting recommendations is great because those marketers know how to market, y'all. Asking what went well, also what didn't go well. I think that's a really good question to ask when you're looking for recommendations. You can learn from other people's disasters when they've really stepped in it, I want to recommend looking beyond your current bubble or social media bubble or specific business industries, particularly for business owners. It's kind of easy to get, you go to the same conferences, you're in the same like coaching groups, and it's kind of easy to get myopic. So I tell my clients, like, don't just ask this question to the the general contractor group that you're in, right? That you have coffee with in the mornings, or whatever. Try to find other outside recommendations as well. And I know the sequence community is pretty diverse in who joins this, so I think that's a great way to do it. Yeah, because remember, ultimately every app that you adopt started out as someone's recommendation. If it's not a peer recommending it, it's the app itself trying to recommend it. So make sure you're getting advice from people who share your values, who share your business challenges, your personal finance challenges. All right, principle 4. Yes, get expert implementation support. So this principle took me a little while to embrace. It's a bit of a mindset shift. And I know a lot of people in the sequence community there's a lot of y'all who are on maybe the early stages of like really building wealth and getting your personal finance house in order. And you're hesitant to spend money, maybe. But I have really kind of turned this corner where, I expect people to hire me for bookkeeping help. So why wouldn't I help? Why wouldn't I, and I even judge people who don't hire for bookkeeping help. Like, I'm not proud of that, but it's true. So I think everyone who has a business who doesn't have an accounting background needs help from accounting professionals. So why would I think that I don't need help from professionals in the problems that I have? So once I accepted that, I started hiring experts when I hit roadblocks. And like, there's an expert in everything, y'all. Like, I truly believe it. There really is an expert in everything. I've hired help for teaching me my video editing software, which is how the YouTube tutorial side of my life took off. I've even hired help from peers. I had a really complicated PayPal issue with a client. And I was like, I could wrestle with this for hours, or I could hire someone who's like better at me at this problem. I've hired someone for help with Google Workspace implementation, hired help for website development, and all these things I had tried on my own at first. So I just think as you're looking for tools, don't be afraid to hire that expert. One of the things that really stands out to me is that by hiring an expert occasionally, you really start to combat this problem of you don't know what you don't know. So every time I've hired an expert for a specific problem, I learn about problems I didn't even know I have, or get tips about things that I didn't even know I was ever going to use. And so that has been a real positive. Like, it's like, even if they just fix my problem, it was going to be worth it to hire someone to help me. But the fact that they did more, most of the time I get more than I was expecting. So I just think it's a good way to run and not stumble your way out of your problems, is if you find an expert and invest in a little bit of support. Principle 5. This can feel uncomfortable a little bit because we don't want to approach every app or tool that we buy with the assumption that it's going to fail us. But I do want you to plan ahead, just in case you need to make a change or transition to something else. And so I think you need to be able to imagine how you would break up with a piece of tech before you invest in it. This hit me as I was implementing a practice management software and a CRM and email marketing. I was like, what if I grow beyond this? Or like what is the breakup process going to be? And so I think pushing on the app's support to ask that question. Hey, what does it look like if someone needs to, exit being in a relationship with you? Can we export data? What format is that export going to be in? Can we downgrade to like a maintenance only plan? If I cancel my subscription, will all my data be deleted? Those are good questions to ask under this principle of beginning with the end in mind. I really encourage you to ask that software's customer support team before you get really neck deep in a software. An example that I have for this is with my bank relay. Like, it was a free bank. So if I want to break up with that bank, I can kind of just keep the account open at no cost, keep a little bit of money in there, and they'll, that's a good way to break up, right? They do have export options, so you can you could rip out CSV files. That's an example. You can also think about yeah, anyway, Relay would allow me to have all my information without disruption, even if I decided to not have them be my primary bank account anymore. So that's something I thought about. The goal here isn't to be pessimistic though, y'all. I don't want to be scary. It's just to be thoughtful, to know what your exit options are. All right, and then the last principle, don't be distracted by AI and automation hype. If you follow the software industry, you're going to notice that like every platform is going to promote AI features. I understand why. They have to bolt on AI in some way, whether the features are truly meaningful or not. Because if they don't, they're going to look like they're behind the times, right? They're going to look like dinosaurs. But that doesn't mean that those AI or those automation tools are right for you. So before you get swept up in the hype, before all that marketing copy about how great their AI is, you need to ask yourselves, are these features that they're promoting actually useful for your problems? They might not be. You might not have those problems, right? Like, who cares about a certain feature set if you don't have those problems? And then you need to ask yourself if you're realistically capable of using those features well. And it's okay if you're not. You're not going to be able to like know all the AI, bolt-ons to every software that you use. So if it's not something that you're going to like focus on learning, then don't get swept up by that hype as well. You got to set aside that marketing language and focus on whether the tool's core functions, the ones that really matter to you, are going to meet your needs. I think a simple, non-AI, non-automated system is better than a complex system that has these, automation and AI bells and whistles that isn't being used well. Because I found that technology works best when it's used to supercharge a process that you already understand and can do manually. So a couple of examples from bookkeeping. If you've ever heard of this concept called profit first, it's not, I know Sequence has a lot of like inter-account transfers and such. Well, profit first is similar. And it's about having several bank accounts that are always constantly transferring money between accounts. And Relay and Profit First partnered up because Relay was like able to create some like automations inside their software. So for instance, you can set up a rule that says every time I get a deposit into my income account, send 25% of it to my tax account, let's say, and then send 50% to my operating expense account. This is how, it's a very common like description of how Profit First would work. And it all sounds fantastic in theory, but I've seen business owners like set up automations without mastering manual cash flow management. And then what happens is they're like overdrafting operating accounts and constantly having to move money back and forth that they weren't intending to, and it creates more chaos. So things would have been better if they had just spent like a month or two making sure they truly understood the system in a manual way before doing the set it and forget it way that the tools say that could be done. So yeah, just tech should supercharge your good habits and not cover up bad habits, because you'll just get into a mess. So those are the 6 principles. Hopefully those will help you to kind of just keep in the back of your mind as you're making investments, and hitting that subscribe button or that start that free trial button on all these softwares that want to sell to you. So let's figure out how to build this system now. I do think in this day and age, your business needs and your personal finances need cloud-based software options. It doesn't seem like anyone who said that any of the tools that have been mentioned were non-cloud based. Someone did say QuickBooks, so I'm curious if John meant QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. Desktop is not a cloud-based software, so I don't recommend that. Intuit is killing it anyway. And I also think modern banking solutions are a must-have as well. I've just seen so many times when like small little credit unions, they're not able to maintain the like integrations like banks who are like really tech forward are able to do. So those I think are very important. You also need to choose features that match your real needs. So for in the business world, some people need proposals and contracts. Some people need time capture. Some people need time tracking. Not everyone needs time tracking. So think about what your real needs are, and then like seek out that particular tool. With personal finances, like maybe there's options that help you with debt pay down. Well, if you don't have a lot of debt, you don't need that particular tool. You might want to be budgeting. Some people, basic budget is all they're ever going to do. Some people are mega nerds and they will need complex budgeting tools. So figure out, or they have complex financial transactions like real estate investors. That's way more complicated than people who are, just W-2 and make personal investments in their, company retirement account. And maybe they have like a taxable brokerage account. Like that's so much more simple. So think about what your real needs are and find the features that match that. And then I think your financial system needs to make up for where you struggle personally. So what do I mean by that? From the business side, maybe you're someone who's uncomfortable with confrontation. Okay. Well, then you need to pick a financial or a bookkeeping software that's going to automatically send invoices until they get paid. Send invoice reminders until you get paid. If you sweat every time you have to remind a client to pay you, figure out a system where you're not even managing those emails that are reminding them. If you are bad at saving money in your personal finances, maybe pick a bank that's going to allow you to automatically do some savings. If you forget to pay bills on time, try to find a bill pay tool that will help you. If any of these weaknesses resonate with you, it's okay. Like we all have things that we're more gifted at than others. And so building that system, thinking about where your own personal weaknesses are is, I think, a great way as you're considering building your financial tech stack. So that you
Kate,
build it.
Can I
Yes.
jump in here real quick too?
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, well, in no particular order. One, I'm married to a graphic designer, so I feel the whole like chasing invoices thing. She sweats that, especially anybody who like has variable income from month to month. Like that the struggle is real right there for sure. Anecdotally, and we don't have to sidebar on this because you've already moved on to something else. I don't want to mess up your flow. You can set up profit first through sequence, but not just something that I wanted to make sure if that was confusing to anybody who was listening. That's not what this whole talk is about. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I would be remiss if I didn't just like make a quick point. John had the bolt, but says that he runs multiple businesses and hasn't found the solution yet. One of the questions that I thought about asking, but I didn't ask at the top of this call was, how many of you guys are running businesses? And, that should give us a sense of like what at least like how complex the challenges are. Kate, I don't want to take you off of where the deck is going. But I know folks are curious about like talking about software and starting to put things together. And I know you've got a worksheet you want to share. So let me throw that back to you and then we'll take it wherever we need to go.
Yeah. So I'll move fast here. So I can share that worksheet. Let me do that now in the chat.
Cool.
I have what I'm calling a mini audit, y'all. And it just has 4 questions on it. It's where you're going to make a list of any tech that you already are subscribed to, or that you use. Some of it's, if you really rely heavily on like Google Sheets or Excel, like write that, and maybe you're not even having to pay for that if you're using like free versions of Google Sheets. Just think of your current tools, identify where your biggest gaps are, and then choose one improvement to tackle. And then there's another question of who are you going to talk to ask for help? Because one of my principles was, get support from someone. So if you know that like you want to really ramp up with sequence and you're just, you're like, I know I'm using it like a rookie. Well, who can you talk to? Who have you connected with in the community that would probably be happy to help you a little bit? Right. And so actually writing down the people's names that are like solutions to your problems and just making one improvement, even in the next week. That's what that worksheet is about. We don't have to take the time to work it out together, because I want to get to some of those questions that you asked, Kevin. So I hope people are able to download that document. Yes, make a copy of the worksheet. It's in yellow at the top. And for folks listening after the fact, I'm guessing, will it be able to be added to the replay, Kevin?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. And then we'll also, before we're all said and done here, Kate, and for the folks who are watching through streaming, we'll provide this after the fact, but I also want to make sure that folks know where to reach out to you if they need to do that.
Yes, I have. That's how I'm going to end. Are you able to see questions from the stream, Kevin?
No, we can't see questions while we're live. It's like I'm sort of the man behind the curtain here, so that's a lot of it's streaming in a variety of different places. We'll pick those up after the fact, but that's one of the benefits of being in the room, is that you get to raise your hand and ask questions directly. If we don't have more, I can share some. Like, we talked a little bit about solopreneurs and solo business operators. Yeah, what are some of the common mistakes that you see people make, even unintentionally, that you think are probably easily corrected with a little bit of foresight?
I think especially for people who are, I think once people get their financial house in order, which I know Sequence is really part of its mission, is to just help in that regard. You're gonna start a business. I just feel like it's such a natural thing that once you realize like the tax benefits that come from having a business, and you're gonna want to increase your income, and so starting a business, keeping that KISS principle in mind is really important. And the simplest way to do that is to have one business checking account that will cover a multitude of sins, quote unquote sins, financial sins, if you just have a single source of truth of what money has come in and come out related to that business. So if you can cobble together some cash, put it in an actual checking account. I mean, this is even more simple than having a credit card too, right? Because that's two accounts. You have to have a checking account to get paid. So if possible, if you can cobble together the cash so you don't have to have a credit card, invest that in the company by funding the bank account with a few $1,000 maybe, and then operating and getting clients to pay you to keep your bank balance high, like to keep, so you don't run out of money, get actual paying clients. You can do bookkeeping so much easier if you have one download of a CSV file at the end of the year. So that's for like the really beginner people who are likely going to think of some good idea that they have to start a business. I recommend a single financial account. After that, a bookkeeping software does help. I'm a bookkeeper, so I really believe in it. But I can do people's books in Excel. Like I can get your tax return. I can get your information that will populate to a tax return in Excel. The reason why I like a bookkeeping software is because it's the first step towards being able to think strategically about your business. And so that's why I do think it's a really good next step. Your gut is not going to always be right. If you use a bookkeeping software correctly, you can say like, am I spending too much? Am I spending more over time? Is my revenue increasing like I think it is? What things that I sell, what services that I sell are my most profitable? That's when you're able to start to use financial tools to really like get more out of them, is when you're thinking about that strategy piece. And it's impossible to do that without having history and categories and reports. And a bank doesn't really give you business income reports down all the way down to like what you're selling. So that's how I'll answer that question. Kevin?
Okay, Kate, I have another one for you. So, and for the sake of argument, let's take FreshBooks off of the table in terms of the answers that you can give for this question. But like, what are some, and with the caveat that like, the correct answer is really going to be, if there is one, is going to vary by business or circumstance. So,
Yep.
so given those caveats, right? What are some pieces of software that businesses or small businesses are using that you think are doing a good job out there?
Um, yeah, I don't need to say FreshBooks for that. A good up and coming software that's really trying to make a mark in the US. I don't know how geographically diverse is Sequence, Kevin?
I mean, we're available across the U.S. So,
Okay,
I mean,
US, but
yeah,
not
U.S. It's
okay.
not. We're not. Yeah, it's U.S. specific.
Okay, so if anyone's had like, there's a bookkeeping software called Zero that is very popular and has a high user base globally, and they're in the American market for a long time. It's a place where I send a lot of people who if they're frustrated with past bookkeeping tools, to try out that one. It handles way more complex businesses than FreshBooks. FreshBooks is for simpler situations. So if your business starts to get large, where you have people working for you, fraud is real, and there's lots of stories of people getting stolen from. And so spend management tools are really good for business owners, where you could create there's a platform called Ramp. There's a platform called Expensify, where
Brex.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say Brex. They compete with Ramp. Like, yeah, there are
Yes,
a bunch of those.
Brex, yes,
Yep.
yes, Brex. So these are tools that allow you to, if someone's gonna steal from you, they're only gonna steal the amount that you set their limit to. Like they could run off and buy something they shouldn't, but then you're gonna fire them and you're only gonna lose that amount of money. But there's a lot of progress being made in spend management, which also can help with, like, if you start to have like kind of divisions, or like per project you have two people helping you on two different projects. If you had different cards for those projects, we would be able to start, you could start working with an accounting pro to like really do like project-based tracking, and it'll be easy if you have, different accounts. So that's an exciting place for a lot of accounting tech development that I see.
By the way,
All
Kate, can I
yeah,
throw in a quick sidebar? I didn't
yes.
expect to have a something to contribute here, but I do. So one of the one platform that I've seen some folks use in the community, both for personal and for business finance, is privacy.com. Like, like basically spinning up a virtual card for a very specific institute. Like, so if you've got a project or something that you want to spin, like, and you were talking about, and I think both Brex and Ramp do a really good job of this too, from what I have seen, like just siloing off the opportunity for fraud. Like,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's just another example. And then we do have a question.
What's the name real quick? You said privacy.com.
Privacy.com.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm going off the top of my head. I'm little sleep and too much caffeine, but I think that's it. And if it's not, I'll correct it when I send it around to you guys post event. But um, so I don't know if you're going to know this platform because it looks like it's industry specific. And Umair, I might have you share more detail if we need it. But Umair asked, what's a good way to integrate the Buildium property management software? So I don't know
Sure.
if you're familiar with it, but
So I can answer best from the American perspective, and I will say, so we don't know where he's from necessarily, but well, your sequence community is American. So let's say it's in
yep.
America. So all software companies build to QuickBooks Online first. Okay. So if you use the word integrate, and that's really important to you, QuickBooks Online is going to be your bookkeeping software of choice. It is like, if you are a software developer, QuickBooks Online has the most users in America. So that's who you're going to spend your development dollars building for. And then what I would say is Buildium I could Google it right now. I'm not going to, but I've heard of that software. So it's going to integrate with QBO in some way. And this is an exact situation where I recommend expert help. Integrations, if you want to integrate anything with your business bookkeeping software, hire someone who's done it before. They'll be able to do it in no time, and they'll do it the right way. And it'll take you hours of YouTube videos that may or may not be right or may be old. And so integrate, I don't know the exact way to tell you how to map it, but I can tell you that if it were me and I started to become a property manager, I would hire someone who was an expert in the Buildium property management software with an accounting background. You could probably ask that software for a recommendation of accounting pros who have built their business becoming an expert in that software. There's a lot of accounting pros who get in really close relationship with a few apps. And that's how that's their niche, right? So that's how I would answer that question from Umair. And then Sequence have an open API. You answered
Great
that.
question, Umair. Yeah. By the way, like last sort of sidebar comment on the earlier question about siloing off fraud stuff. The other thing that you guys can do, and this isn't really Kate, I wouldn't expect, this is not a Sequence specific talk, so I don't expect you to. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but one thing that some folks have done is create pods in Sequence, you guys, and then just essentially capped the amount of funds that you can keep in there. And so there are lots of different creative ways if you're in a platform that will allow you to do that to protect yourself.
So would the Sequence pod actually prevent the spending, or does it just alert you whenever it's gone over?
No, it doesn't. So it does, and I'll have to triple check this with the customer service guys just to make sure that I'm 100% accurate. But it shouldn't go negative. So it's like you can limit the amount of spend in there. You can top these up, and you can cap them. So we've seen some crazy ambitious money maps, and that's not what this session is about. But it's like folks do silo these off a bit in their, some users silo these off in their array. So it makes it very difficult to overspend on something that you want to make sure that you only spend a certain amount on.
And what's the financial institution behind it?
Thread Bank out of Nashville. So when you
create
yeah.
So y'all actually have the routing number. Y'all own these routing numbers.
Yeah, and everybody in the audience probably knows this, but I'll just share. So when you create a pod, or like essentially it instantly creates an account that's backed by Thread Bank. So that's how that works.
Okay, well, I did not realize that. I'm sorry, my examples for Relay Bank were, because I think they're probably similar. So I didn't realize, I thought y'all were like layered on top of like anyone's financial apps. And you do that, but you also have your own. Obviously.
Yeah, we won't necessarily sidebar on it too much, but like what I'll say is that like Sequence isn't a bank. We do help unsilo various financial institutions that wouldn't talk to each other necessarily, help them shake hands, work a little bit like If This and That or Zapier for finance. So right. So anyway, yeah, there are some things that people automate, but to your point, I think it's really such great advice to make sure that you understand how everything works beneath the hood when you set up your system. So really, really terrific. Looks like we do have another question from Umair who says, what are some ways that other users have used the Open API with Sequence? That is really a question probably for the dev team, Umair, so I won't sidebar. I already feel like I'm gobbling up the tail end of Kate's talk, which is not my intent. But it's a great question, and we'll I can point you to. I'll reach out to you after the fact, and maybe can point you to some conversations in the community that are API specific.
Awesome.
With so many apps, it's difficult to put together a property tech stack. 100% hear you. Kate, any advice on like if you were in the construction business or in a specific business, like what are when you're putting together your stack, what are the different elements that you're looking at? And we talked about how you choose them, but I think it might be a good refresher to talk about, like,
Yeah.
what typically makes it up?
He actually said property management, which is
Yep.
different than construction. So the issue with construction is it's a balance sheet heavy industry. You're owning stuff that you're building, and your profit and loss is only like huge number when you sell. But property management is like recurring revenue. You get that check from your clients every month. It's very, very, very different. You might both those people might buy a refrigerator, but they are handled very differently. So if I could talk about the property management side, because that's what I do, real estate investing.
Yeah, he said real estate investing and property management. That I misspoke, so that's on me.
Oh,
but
okay.
If you could speak to those, that'd be great.
So real estate investing, more so than property management, is some of the hardest accounting. So the first thing is I want to know, have you hired a real estate expert at accounting, and not like a tax person? I'm talking a day-to-day operations accounting expert. There's a difference between, like, bookkeeping is kind of day-to-day and tax accounting is like once a year. So you're not, and you need, real estate has complex tax stuff too. But the day-to-day ops, if you haven't hired someone who's an expert at real estate investing applications, the tax accounting plan. Yeah, tax accounting is not day-to-day ops. VA for QuickBooks. VA, I don't like that word. I would love, because if it's the same person that's also selling website development services, then that means they're not good enough at accounting. Okay. You need to hire a fractional real estate bookkeeping expert. They can still be fractional like a VA would be. But it is so hard. It is so hard because most people don't understand balance sheet accounting. Property management. Okay, a couple of like practical tools. Different bank accounts per property is a very practical tool. Property management. A simple thing of charging different rent amounts, even by $1, can help. That's one tiny. So like if you've got an apartment complex, don't let everyone pay $800. They're going to pay 801, 802, 803, and that's a great little administrative tip to know who's paying for which property. What else for real estate investing and property management? Probably declaring some sort of auto payments at the beginning of the month. If you can start to, if your clientele is able to do that, where you can set up recurring, not just recurring invoices, but recurring charges. That's a potential way to use a bookkeeping tool to help make sure that the revenue collection is happening and that it's being mapped properly inside of bookkeeping software. So like if you're using QuickBooks, can you set up recurring invoices with QuickBooks payments to get those amounts withdrawn every month? Then if you do that, then QuickBooks matches it perfectly on which invoices were paid. So be encouraged that what you're doing is very, very hard. But yeah, I'm not familiar with, I've specifically had training with him with real estate investing coursework. I don't know if that's talking about the VA or not.
I think so. It sounds like a longer conversation, and so I don't want to hijack what's left, the time that we have left.
Sure.
Great set of questions, Umair. Totally makes sense, and it actually sounds like it's like, to Kate's point, a very sophisticated and complex business arrangement. So anyway, and we'll provide you with an opportunity to reach out at the conclusion here, so everybody can touch base. It does look like we have another. Oh yeah, no worries, man. Alvin, Kenny, Kevin, any of you guys who are sitting in on the call, if you have questions, or if there's a specific type of business that you're in that you want Kate to speak to, now's a great time. Otherwise, I want to make
While
sure
they're
that
doing
we
that,
get an opportunity to do that.
yeah, while they're doing that, I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile in the chat, because I know you mentioned wanting people to connect with me. So I'm putting that in the chat, and I just have some final thoughts and encouragement. We're all finance people here in this room, and so I wanted to use the word compounds. Improvements in your financial systems and your tech stack will compound over time, and everyone's starting in a different place, right? So if you're a business owner who's been mixing business and personal expenses, I got to tell you, that's really bad. That's like kindergarten level mistake.
Yeah.
But you can fix that, right? And there are going to be some people listening to this call who are they're making kindergarten level financial mistakes. Sequence is happy to help people at that level. And then there's going to be people like Jeremiah, who I know you told me, Kevin, is like one of the most advanced users of Sequence and has all the mappings, right?
He's a whiz kid.
The person who's mixing business and personal expenses, they're not going to be able to do the advanced mapping in Sequence yet, right? Like that's you are where you are, but your improvements will compound over time. And so a year from now, 2 years from now, as you've gone through the baby steps that the Sequence community will teach you, next thing you know, you'll have all the kindergarten problems handled and you'll be doing the advanced stuff. So just know that stuff does compound over time. So be encouraged. Like finance is all a long game. Business and personal finances are a long game. So
hey, we do have a question from Kenny. Can I share while we have a couple minutes left? Okay, sure. He says, as a watch trader, I use NAV as a bank account and credit cards to increase business credit rating, and Sequence to manage my personal and business accounts using the Profit First system. For accounting, I import transactions into LegalZoom. Do you consider this bloated? Can it be simplified? Kenny, points for you for asking the big question. What do you think, Kate?
I had no idea that LegalZoom was a general ledger. Importing your transactions into LegalZoom for accounting, like it gives you a P&L and a balance sheet? Anyway, so you have only said that you use, well, I don't know how many credit cards you have. I do think chasing a lot of credit cards is a sign of bloat to me. When I see people having multiple credit cards, I'm like, why? What in the world are you doing? And I reject all these points. Most people are not good enough for that. And one mistake blows all the savings you get from your points. And so I don't know how many credit cards. If it's a bank account and a credit card or two, that's fine. That's not bloated. Sequence is a single app. So as long as you're squeezing Sequence for all it's worth, right? Like if you're tempted to do something outside of Sequence related to finances, come back to the community and ask, hey, I'm wanting to do this extra thingy. See if Sequence can do it. So we're only up to like maybe 4 things now. And then the Profit First system is underneath Sequence. So instead of trying to do some other Profit First system, you're using Sequence. So that's using the same app. I have no idea about LegalZoom, but I will tell you that I think bookkeeping software is definitely on the list of every business owner. And so Sequence isn't a business bookkeeping software, right, Kevin?
No, it's not.
So you got to have a bookkeeping software. I cannot opine about LegalZoom's accounting capabilities, but I do not consider what you have said right now to be bloated. That's my answer.
Okay. Great question, Kenny. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I'm triple checking right now, but I know that Sequence shakes hands with QuickBooks, and I'd be surprised if we didn't shake hands with FreshBooks, but
I would not be surprised.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we're not trying to fill the same space for sure. You need both.
Yeah. I want to say I would be surprised if y'all integrated with FreshBooks. So the heavy Sequence users are not going to be picking FreshBooks because of the wonderful integration between Sequence and FreshBooks. No one spends development dollars on integrating with FreshBooks in a robust way. It's for simple service-based businesses who need to send good invoice and track time and expenses to projects and that sort of thing. So
make sure they get paid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk with people who like FreshBooks is great. It's how I make my living. They have a lot of users, but it is for a very specific slice of or type of business. I actually think that their list of businesses that they work for on their homepage is a pretty good list, with the exception of lawyers who are listed, who require trust accounting. But otherwise, and then they say real estate, which doesn't, if it means home building, home builders can't use FreshBooks either. But home fixers can. So it's a limited skill set, limited type of business that can use that software. But you need a bookkeeping software, I believe, after you have that business bank account. Okay, so again, as I said it earlier, cover a multitude of business and accounting problems if you have just a single dedicated source of truth. So
I tell you,
yeah, just go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say we're coming up against time, and we actually ended up running almost a full hour, and it just goes to show you like how much there is to dive into here. It's a really meaty topic, and obviously like lots of different bespoke situations, but I really loved how we talked about and how you covered for us, Kate, like all the principles and the things that we need to think about in order to be successful as we're choosing our tech stack. That doesn't mean you guys aren't still going to have questions. So Kate dropped her information into chat. You can reach out to me if you're watching on the stream at kevin@getsequence.io. If you want Kate's contact information, or if you have any additional questions about your stack that we can be helpful about. But round of virtual applause for Kate. Thank you so much for spending some time and dropping some knowledge for us today, Kate.
I'm just thrilled to have done it. Thanks again to Jeremiah for recommending me. And I'll put my screen back up one more time. There's a QR code here. So as in the listeners, sorry I didn't have this available. My email's at the bottom, and this is also to my LinkedIn, since not everyone was able to get that link to the chat. So I awesome. Thank you. Happy to come back anytime. I'm excited to hear success stories of people who are picking their tech stack because of this presentation. So thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and wishing you terrific success. Kate, thank you so much, and I'll touch base